As another exercise, first we will define a class, and then we will declare an array of objects created from this class. The class that we want to discuss in this problem is for a family. The family has income, monthly income, and has size, which is the number of people in the family. Let us start defining the class by defining its data members. Here how we start defining the class, public class family, and here are the attributes are the data members, and we define them as a private. In addition to the attributes, we need to define the following methods. We need a constructor that has two input parameters. The first is the income, the second is the size. The constructor will initialize the data members by these parameters. Also, we need to define another method, it's called isRich, that its input is the average expenditure of the family and its average saving monthly. What is the average expenditure? The average expenditure is in fact the average expenses the family pays compared to the savings. The method should return true if the expenditure plus the saving multiplied by the size of the family is greater than 60% of the family income. So SAV as an input parameter is the average savings of an individual, while EXP is the average expenditure done on the family. Finally, we need to write a method that is called toString. This method is similar to a print that returns a string, but it's not a printing, it is retaining a string containing the information about the family. Let us see how we can define these three methods. First is the constructor. As we say that it initializes the data members income and size through the parameters. Next is the Boolean method isRich. As you see, it has two input parameters, expenditures and savings. And it compares expenditure plus saving multiplied by the size of the family with 60% of the income. If it is greater than 60% of the income, this expression will return true. Otherwise, it will return false. So this method can tell us whether the family is rich or not rich. Finally, toString method, and this is very well-known method that is always included inside objects. It does not print, however, it retains a string that it describes the data members of the class. Here, what does it retain? It retains a string that starts with the size of the family, followed by the text people with income, followed by income. So if there are 3 people in the family with income, let's say 1,000 dinar, then we say that 3 people with income 1,000 dinar. After defining the family class, now it is required to write a program that counts the number of families that are considered rich. And we will do that into 3 steps. The first step, we will let the program read an integer k from the keyboard that represents the number of families. Step number 2, we are going to create an array of size k, whose base type of the family class we have created earlier. It should then create k objects of type family and put them in the array, then reading the income and size for each family from the keyboard. And the last step, after reading an average expenditure and average savings from the keyboard, it should display the families that are rich. So here, the last step will count the number of families that are rich. So let us implement these 3 steps in JGrasp. This is the definition for the class family. We have the data members, we have the constructor, we have the Boolean method isRich, and finally we have toString method. We have created a new class, we called it richCount, and we defined the main method inside it. Remember that we wanted to find the number of families that were rich, and we divided the solution into 3 steps. Step number 1 was to read number of families k from the user. We will create a scanner for reading. Then we will display a message to the user, telling the user how many families are there. Then we define an integer k that represents the number of families, and we read from the keyboard by saying read.nextInt. After reading the number of families and save the answer into the variable k in step 1, step 2 now is divided into 3 parts. The first part is to create an array of size k whose base type is family. In part 2, we should create k objects of type family and put them in the array. And part 3 is reading the income and size for each family from the keyboard. Let us implement step 2. So here are the parts of step 2. First, we need to create an array of size k whose base type is family. Then we will create k objects of family class, and then we will read income and size for each family. Let us implement the first part. Now, to create an array of size k whose base type is family, we start the base type family, empty square brackets, and we are going to call the array data. And we are going to create the array. So we say that family of size k. This will declare an array called data of type family. The size is k. In part 2 and 3, we need to create k objects of family class and then read income and size for each family. Since we have an array and we are going to create an object for each element of this array, so we start by writing a for loop. So we say for integer I equal to 0, and I will be used as the index for the array, I less than data dot length I plus plus. Now in each iteration, remember that we have to read income and size for each family. We create an object and then we save the reference of this object into the array. Now we have to know the sequence. Are we going to read first and then create the object, or we create the object and then read the data? Remember that for the family class, we did not define default constructor. We defined only one constructor that initializes the data member. Therefore, we have to read the data from the user first, then we create the object. Let us start. We print a message system.out.println, and in here we will ask to enter income and size for each family. Since we have more than one family, so it's preferred that we follow the family by a number. So we say enter income and size for family, and we follow it by a number. Now we will put maybe hash, and after hash we need to display the family number. To get the family number, we get it from the index variable that is used for the loop. So we can write I, but remember I starts from 0. And it is good for arrays because arrays always start from 0, but it's not good as an output to the user. We cannot say enter income and size for family 0 because we are always start from 1. So what we do, we add 1 to the index variable I, and now the output will be enter income and size for family number 1, number 2, and etc. Then we will read this data into local variables. So we will define a variable that is income equal to read dot next double, because income was defined inside the class as double, and then we will read the size and we will call it size as an integer read dot next int. After reading the income and size for the family, now we need to create an object for this family and save it into the array. So we say data I, this is the current indexed variable for the array, equal to new family, and we supply n and size as parameters to the constructors. So here now we are creating an object of family. At the same time, we are assigning the reference to the index variable data I. Before implementing step 3, let us compile the program and see if it has error before it gets bigger. We compile it. So we don't have any error so far, so let us run it and test it for some numbers. And here it says how many families. Let's say, for example, we have 2 families. Enter income and size for family number 1. Let's say 1,500, and the family size is 5. And for the second family, 750, and the family size is 2. So the program is working fine. Let us go and implement step number 3. In step 3, we will read an average expenditure and average savings from the keyboard, and then we will use this one to compare every family's income using isRich method. If the family is rich, then we will display it on the screen. To implement step 3, first we read an average expenditure and savings. Then we will display the information for each rich family. Then we will display how many of these families. Let us read the average expenditure and savings. So we display a message, system.out.println, and then here we say enter average expenditure and savings. We will save them into two variables, double, we will say exp for expenditures, double spelling, exp equal to read.next double. And for savings, we will define another variable, sav equal to read.next double. Now to check every family if it is rich or not, then we have to go over all the families inside the array data. And to do this, we write a for loop. So we say for integer I equal to 0, I less than data dot length I plus plus. And since we need to count the number of families that are rich, so we need a counter. So before we enter the loop, we are going to define a count. Let's say rich count equal to 0. And inside the loop, whenever we find a family that is rich, then we will increase this value by 1. So how to check if the family is rich or not? Remember that we have a method that is called isRich. If we give it the expenditure and savings, it will tell us whether the family is rich or not. So how to use this method for each family? Here we say if data I, which is the current family, dot isRich, and now we are calling the method isRich. We give it the expenditure and we give it the saving. And then we check for the answer. If the answer is true, then we need to do two things. First, we need to display a message that this family is rich. At the same time, we will increase the rich count families. Since we have two things to do under this condition, so we must put that into a group. First, we will increase rich count by 1, and here we will display the family information. So we'll say system.out.println, and then we will say that family, and we will follow it by the family number, which is I plus 1, to avoid starting from 0. And then we will display a message by saying is considered between brackets, and we will display the family information. Notice that we have printed only the family number. We did not print anything about the family, for example, income and size of the family, which exist in the class. If we go to the class, see now the class has two private data members, income and size, and we don't have getters for them. So how to print the information about this family? Before we answer this question, let us elaborate more on the special method that is called toString. Now this method is a special method that is inherited by any object you create in Java. What does it mean? It means any object you create from any class, even if you don't define it, then automatically when you write the name of the object using a print, the system automatically is going to call it as a description of the object. So toString method with no argument is an inherited method that retains all the data in an object. However, the inherited version of toString is almost always useless because it will not produce a nice string representation of the data. You need to override it, which means you have to define its own definition in your class to produce an appropriate string for the data in your object. So this is why we are redefining it now here, and we are allowing this method to retain a string that has the family size followed by people with income followed by the income. So let me show you how to use this method and how this method is called by the Java system automatically. Remember, what does it do? it returns a string. This string starts with the family size, followed by people with income, followed by the income. So let us go to our main program and show you how to use this method and how the system deals with it. By going back to our main program, so here, for example, if I say print the value of data I. So what is data I? Data I is in fact a pointer to an object of a family. Now here we are not calling any method for this object. So the system automatically, because we are using the name of the object inside the println, then the system automatically will call the inherited method that is called toString. Now we have already defined one, and we will show you after we run the program that what if that method does not exist in our class? Then what will be printed? Now what the system will do, now you are just writing the name of the object and you are not calling any method, then automatically it's going to call toString method, and toString method will return a string for you and a println will print it on the screen. After finishing from the loop, so this loop will count how many families that were rich. Now we need to print how many of these families. So we say system.out.println, and we will say that the count is, and we simply display the value for count, which is called rich count. And this will complete the implementation for step 3. So let us compile the program. So the program has no errors. Now we will run it for a sample of data. So let us run the program for a sample of data. So here it is asking for how many families. Let's assume we have 3 families. For the first family, the income is 1,500 for 5 people. The second, 750 for 3 people. And the third will be 1,000 for only 2 people. And now it is asking for the average expenditure and savings. Let us assume that the expenditures is 300 and the saving is 100. And it is printing that family 2 is considered, I think we should write here rich, as rich, to make the message more clearer. Now let us go back to our discussion for toString, and as we said that if you just write the name of the object with the print statement, then it will print the inherited method toString. If you have defined one in your class, it will use it, the system will use it. Otherwise, it will use the inherited one by the system. Let us go to the definition family. Let us just comment this one out. Assume that it does not exist. Let us save it. And now let us go back to our program and compile the program again. And we will give the same sample. We will run the program. See, it does not give any errors. It didn't say that data I or toString method is not defined in your class. It will just use the system toString method. So it says here 3. The first one, 1,500, 5 people, 750, 3 people, and 1,000 couples. And let us say that the average expenditure is 300 and the saving is 100. And see what is printed. As we said before, that it will give you useless information about the object. Therefore, you have to define one for yourself. It will return a string, the appropriate message that you need to print on the screen, use it, define it in that toString, and the system will automatically is going to call it. Now when we go back and put the definition for toString, and as you see, we are designing the string the way we wanted. We wanted to return family size followed by this message followed by income. Now let us save it, compile it, and let's run the program again and see how it works. 3 families, 1,500, 5 people, 750, 3 people, and 1,000 couples. Average expenditure 300 and saving 100. As you can see, the message printed is appropriate for our output.